Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Risk and Assurance Committee. Let me just make the opening statement, which I'm sure you're all used to by this time, but I remind councillors that the public section of this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and that the recording will be made available on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council website following the meeting. I also remind all present that local government decision-making affords no protection to councillors, officers and the public for comments made during meetings that are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. That ends the lesson. Right, just a couple of preliminary notices. Welcome to New Zealand Audit. They are online and will be joining us or will be presenting in a few minutes. Taro is a member of the committee and it is COVID limited as far as I understand it. So welcome to Taro. Bruce Robertson, who is the deputy chairman, has been tied up in a meeting in Hamilton. He will be coming on in line and he assures us he'll be on in a few minutes. So apologies, I've got an apology from the member of the committee, Councillor von Daddelson, from non-members, Councillor Neese, Councillor Thurston, but I think, did I see Councillor Thurston come off online or not?
Yeah, I am here, Chairman, and I just wanted to correct Councillor Winters is the one that is isolating at the moment, not Councillor White.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Thurston. I was about to make that correction. I'm here alive and well and happy to participate as the Chairman.
So just reiterating, I've got non-members, Councillor Neese, apologies from Councillor Neese, Councillor Thurston and Councillor Rose. Public forum, there is no public forum. Items not on the agenda, there are no new items to be added to the agenda. Order of business, there are no changes to the order of business. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest which people wish to be recorded? Do you want to use your normal Quayside one?
Through you, Chair, I guess in the part of the rating matters there might be a temporary conflict of interest with regard to Quayside dividend.
Okay.
And ditto, Mr. Chair.
Sorry?
And similarly to Councillor Crosby, my role on Quayside as well.
May I also add, Chair, through the audit, there's definitely a connection to Quayside.
Right. I move that Councillor von Daddelson's apology is accepted. Can I have a seconder? Yeah. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Right. Public declaration of conflict. We've done that. Public excluded business to be transferred to the open. There is none. Minutes. Risk and Assurance Committee of the 14th of April. Are there any? Does anybody have any amendments to those minutes? Thank you. Right. Can I have somebody who would like to move that they are a true record?
Happy to move, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Crosby, thank you. Councillor Clark. All those in favour say aye. Right, we are now on to the external audit plan. So over to Matt Taylor, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we're joined, as you said, by Audit New Zealand today and Kamaran and Nolene from the finance team. So I'll just hand over to Kamaran.
Good afternoon, committee members. This agenda item essentially is covering off the external audit plan, which is part of an annual audit process where Audit New Zealand sets out their audit approach and focus areas for the audit for this financial year. So essentially, that's covering off key elements that the committee needs to consider and the audit director and audit manager are present to present their plan to you and allow the opportunity for the committee members to ask any questions with regards to the audit approach and also of finance staff in terms of any council deliverables and obligations in regards to the annual audit.
Thank you. Right, so I've already welcomed, but Leon and Anton, you're very welcome. over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, I think on your page 18, management has done an excellent summary of our audit plan. So I'll take the audit plan as well as that report as read and not go into any huge details, rather giving the committee the opportunity to ask us questions around anything in the audit plan.
So, are there any questions which members of the committee would like to raise with the external auditors?
Mr. Chairman, if I can, could I just ask Leon to elaborate on the process that we'll have this year, bearing in mind the election and the final audit beginning in September and the final audit report being prepared for November, and just to give councillors, members of the committee, clarification on that process and timing.
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you. Yeah, I should have mentioned that already. So the timeliness is of timing of the audit is timelines are very different from what we experienced a few years ago before COVID. Because of auditor shortages and the continued impact of COVID, we just, there's no way we're going to be able to complete the audit in time for the local government elections. What we propose councils do is for the outgoing council as well as this committee to give assurance to the new council about that they are comfortable with the annual report, and give them a representation similar to what we expect from the council. So what we propose to do, not we will propose, what we will do is we will send within the next month to the finance team a draft letter of representation that we would expect, and we would propose that management give that same kind of representation to council to give them assurance over the annual report. And then also for the outgoing council to confirm to the new council that they are comfortable with the annual report as it stands. When the last bit of assurance the new council can achieve from the whole process is, of course, we need to complete the audit before council can actually adopt it, and that external assurance will be the last piece of the puzzle. I know it's not ideal, and I know all councils across the country would prefer to have their audits completed before the local government elections. I can assure you, it'll probably only be those that are issuers. From memory, that will be Auckland Council and Dunedin City Council. I'm not aware of any others that will be completed. That's the process as far as the subsidiaries are concerned. So Quayside Holdings have got NZX rules that they need to comply with. So we aim to have that audit completed and have agreed this with management as well as the board of Quayside by the end of August. That's perfectly in line with your annual report audit process. So that covers off that risk. As part of the whole Quayside Holdings group, we also do Toi Moana Trust, which is a subsidiary of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, of course. We do that at the same time. So before we start the final audit of the council and group, we will have that audit completed as well.
Okay, Leon, thanks very much for that. It's not ideal, as you say, but I think we have to take the pragmatic approach and say it is what it is. And we will work as closely as we can with you to help you through the process, because certainly we would like to ensure we can get to it before Christmas, in any case, if we can do so, but hopefully won't wait well before that. Matt, do you want to make any final comment on this?
Nothing from me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Chairman, could I just raise an issue? And I appreciate that an audit is actually a backward-looking process in terms of giving us comfort. But on the agenda today, you have the digital cyber security issues, the ICT issues, and I wonder whether or not Audit New Zealand would be prepared, or they have the scope to offer an opinion in terms of our management of that risk, given the macro global stresses that this sort of function is under at the moment, because it's no good having a backward-looking view on that sort of thing, as opposed to have we taken appropriate steps in terms of managing that risk to an acceptable level.
So Leon, would you like to comment on that?
Absolutely, and I think that's a really good point, is to get assurance, basically real-time assurance. That is not part of our audit scope, and with, as I said about the auditor shortages, it's going to be very tough for us to even scope that into the audit. I would suggest getting independent external assurance advice, whether it be from Audit New Zealand, which is our specialist team, or from one of the big four, to give you that assurance over those items.
Okay, thank you for that. As I understood it, but Matt, do you want to make any comment about, I know we're dealing with cybersecurity later, but whilst the auditors are here, would you just like to just very briefly outline our approach, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you pointed out, we have an internal audit report, an internal report on cybersecurity today, as well as the team presenting on our cybersecurity preparedness. And maybe following that report and the assurance that those two reports give you, you would consider whether or not you need a further external review. External audit will be undertaking that as part of their normal annual report review they do, with certain emphasis that they might discover as they're doing that, but we haven't commissioned any other external review. And until you receive the report from the internal auditor and from the internal team, I guess that will be the time to make that judgment.
Right. Yeah.
Just on page 3 of the plan, I'm assuming the evaluation of the put options are PPS. We don't have any other instruments that have put options.
Sorry, I missed that.
Through Mr. Chairman, yes, the put option is our only valuation of that nature that we value through this process.
Right. Any further questions? But before I take any further questions, I'd just like to note that Bruce Robertson, who is the Deputy Chair of this committee, has now joined the meeting. So Bruce, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Right. All we now need to do then is receive that report. Can somebody like to move that we receive the report? Councillor Crosby, Councillor Clark, all those in favour say aye. Thank you, carried. Right. Leon and Anton, I know you could stay for the rest of the meeting and really enjoy yourselves, but I'm sure you'd like to get on with your audit. As you tell us, you're very busy. So look forward to seeing you again in the future, and thank you for your attendance today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one other item I should have covered off previously, which I didn't, is our engagement with the Port of Tauranga as well as KPMG through Quayside. So we've had those conversations because there were some issues that came through in the past that caused a difference between the port, Quayside, and then Bay of Plenty, and we just wanted to front foot that, and we had early engagement with them, and we also take their pro forma, waiting for their pro formas to be presented to us for us to do a technical review early before the end of June. So we're trying to front foot those issues that were issues in the past. Sorry, I didn't want to take up more of your time, but I forgot to mention that last bit.
Well, thank you for that. But and I'm very pleased that you're taking that approach, because it is one which has come up for the last couple of audits, and it really does leave us in a very nervous situation as we get towards the critical time. Bruce, before I actually say goodbye to the auditors, do you wish to raise any questions? Do you have any questions or any points you would like to raise with them?
Look, firstly, David, my apologies for lateness. Just a bit of traffic between Hamilton and the airport. Apologies. Look, no, I think actually possibly what Leon has just said is music to my ears. That Leon, what I'm hearing is front-footing of issues, and that's the critical thing. given the natural delayed time that's required this year around the audits. So, David, I don't want it to repeat what you've probably discussed or may have there in my notes, which is essentially, I'm hoping that we have got both arrangements in place to receive this as the outgoing committee, number one, and number two, that we've got some assumption that the big issues, and similar to the ones that Leon have just mentioned, are actually in hand and will be dealt with prior to the audit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, well, I think that really does conclude this particular section. So thank you very much, Leon. Thank you very much, Anton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. See you.
Thank you. Bruce, just as an aside, I've obviously got your notes just in case of late attendance, but I'm presuming now that you'll be raising those points yourself rather than relying on those notes. Be relying on the notes.
Yes, I can do that, David.
Thank
no
you.
worries.
Right, thank you. Right, we're on to 8.2, Chairperson's report. Matt Taylor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is your regular backward-looking and forward-looking work programme for this committee. We have one more committee before the end of the triennium, and bearing in mind the discussion we had with the external auditor over the items that were presented to your September meeting, I've got nothing further to add to the report, Mr. Chair.
Questions or comments?
Moved.
Seconded. Right, so we're receiving the report. It's been moved and seconded. All in favour say aye. Thank you. Carried. Right, now we're on to the internal audit update. So, Steve and Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. I'll take the report as read. Note in the report, delivery tempo of internal audit is returning to normal post the COVID interruption. We've confirmed with our external provider that they will be able to carry out the risk management review commencing in July, so we hope to get that tidied up August-ish, ready to present to the September RAC before the end of triennium. We're working with the action owners for some of those legacy issues to try and get those resolved by the end of training as well. There'll be a number of those older audit issues. And we'll be bringing a refreshed audit program for the next year coming to the next RAC as well. Any questions?
One comment I would like to make is just looking at your timetable or the audit plan on page 52. I'm pleased to see that what we're intending to do is to cover off as much as we can and close off as much as we can, so that we hand over with a clean sheet without outstanding issues to the incoming council. So my thanks for that. Any questions or comments from around the table, please? I think this.
Could I raise one?
So, sorry, Bruce.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Look, I should have raised my hand through the chat function. Sorry. Look, my core question around this was probably agreeing with your point, David. Great that we're trying to wrap up core issues, outstanding recommendations. I was particularly interested in the idea of the external risk management review. And what is the realistic probability of that being done before the end of the triennium? Because I think that would be valuable for the new council, as it has to obviously consider the nature of its committees, what it has, and hopefully proves some value of the work of this committee.
Sure, through you, Chair. I touched base with the provider this morning. They assure me that yes, early July start is going to happen, and they've already set up an opening meeting with the GM in charge. So as long as, in the COVID world, as long as we don't have any other things happening in the background, yes, it's on track.
That's great. Thank you. Be great to see it there if we can. Thank you.
Further questions? No, right. Thank you. So, we're just receiving a report again. Can somebody move, please? Councillor Crosby, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Carried. Right. We're now on to the really big matter, one of the big matters for this meeting, which is a rate setting for 2022-23. And of course, what this does signify for our council is a departure from the previous way we organised rates, in that we had them collected on our behalf. And now, of course, we are setting up, we are putting ourselves, we're setting the rates ourselves and doing the administration ourselves. And I've had all the assurances I need as chairman that the procedure has been properly and very carefully considered and put into effect. But certainly, if anyone's got any questions on that, please don't hesitate to ask them, because this is a very important time in, I won't say in the history of Bay of Plenty Regional Council, but certainly it's a critical period for us. So, right, Kamaran, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So, committee members, this particular report is essentially to bring to your attention the draft rate setting resolutions that will be going to council later this month. The rate setting process is part of an annual process and is subject to external legal review. So the content of the report essentially sets out the draft rates in the context of any legal review advice that we've received to this point, which is still ongoing in the build up to the agenda for council on the 23rd of June. Essentially, the review includes any implications for the introduction of the rate collection function as an initial function for council for next financial year. And essentially what council will see is, in essence, at the adoption meeting, is subject to the second round of review, is an inclusion in the resolutions that sits in the draft, is also the delegation, which is set as an attachment included in the resolutions as a final change. So that will be one of the more significant cosmetic changes you'll see in the final version, and that's come through after this agenda was concluded for this particular meeting. Other than that, there'll be some minor legal tweaks to the resolution, which council will see at the adoption meeting. But in essence, what you see now is covering off the substantial legal review findings to ensure legal compliance with the rate setting process that council will then be required to set later this month.
Okay, thank you for that. I would like just to thank all the members of the team who have put together this very comprehensive package of work which has been done to get us to this point. And I think they've done an excellent job, so well done. But are there questions from around the table? Councillor Crosby.
Just to note that this is a critical part of the process. It's something that the council has to get 100% correct. If there is a dot missing in the wrong place, it can cause enormous problems. So congratulations today for the detail that's gone into this, and certainly look forward to the final coming through.
Bruce.
Yeah, thank you, David. Look, great that you've got that assurance. And I just thought, Kumaran, if I could just ask a couple of questions. And one is, obviously, when we go live, it is for real. Have you had a chance to practice on your systems and know that they are adequate? Number one. And number two, my other question was, now that there is a more direct relationship between council and the ratepayer in terms of the invoices, have we got the adequate staffing and resourcing to deal with any potential ratepayer inquiries over rates?
From a systems perspective, there's been a very rigorous process followed through from procurement, user requirements, design, testing, and implementation. So that's been through quite a robust series of processes to establish the system that's best fit for council, for the function at hand. In terms of resourcing, we've actually finally just recently completed the recruitment process for the rates team. The rates team was largely resourced throughout the majority of the project, with some key members now finalized into the team as of last week. So now a fully resourced team ready to go live on 1 July. A team that's not only fully resourced, but suitably experienced to take on the new function for council and make sure this process runs smoothly.
Thanks, that's great to hear.
I think I'd just like to say I wish we had a way of being able to measure out in the public space how many of our ratepayers suddenly find out for the first time there's actually 2 councils out there. It's going to be quite a very intriguing little process out there to see how the public react to the fact that there's 2 sets of rates out there, and it'll be, I guess, as a council, it's going to be interesting to pick up on that feedback. It's certainly an interesting little social dynamic that I should look forward to seeing.
9 years ago, when I first started on audit and risk, I made a suggestion, and which was taken up, and I think that Matt was already had a gleam in his eye that we would go to setting our own rates. And one of the primary reasons for doing so was to give us the visibility which we don't have to date. And so what it really is going to be really interesting is to see how much that visibility, what it does for us and what problems it may cause for us, because in some ways it's been quite nice being invisible, but I don't think that's quite what we ought to be doing. So, Councillor White, I've got your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was just going to follow on. I was going to ask the similar question to what Councillor Clark has asked, but really, so that's with the communities and making that connect with the communities and articulating what's happening. What about the interface with the TLAs? How's that been going? Or is that sort of in any way complicated, or has it been well sorted?
Kumar?
So discussions with TLAs have been ongoing through the commencement of the project right up to this point in time to ensure there's clear understanding of the regional council's role and TLA's role with the introduction of the new function as of 1 July. And that's also underpinned by service level agreements that are currently being considered by those TLAs to ensure that there's clarity of expectations in terms of the different roles and the change in roles with the introduction of the new function versus what was previously in operation.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. I've got a question that's more future focused than dealing with the state of play today. So, in putting this package together, collecting our rates, I'd like some comfort that we are actually future proofing with a strategic lens in terms of can we accommodate changes in the future. So if you look across at other commercial sectors, if you take in particular the banking sector uses a one common data provider. I think it's Data Bank or something like that. But in local government, we're all got our own rating databases and we all operate a little bit differently. But looking into the future, is what we put in place, is it endeavouring to future-proof? Is it leading edge in terms of best practice? So if in the future there is a desire or willingness for a centralised provider to collect rates, that we're pretty well aligned to be able to deliver that, our needs into that data provision service?
Well, I'm going to ask Kamaran to answer in detail, but I think what I would like to make is an overall comment in that picking the providers, we really did take cognizance of who was the best, as far as we could see, in the country, who would best give us that future proofing which we require. And I think we have achieved that as far as is humanly possible for the moment. But Kamaran, would you like to make a further comment?
So the best possible way council can prepare for any future changes and be adaptable to those changes is having really robust design processes in place, which has been implemented through this project in terms of having a system and a series of rates processes that's efficient and as simple as possible to administer. The data integrity is of the highest quality possible. And being clear on those processes places council in a strong position to be able to adapt to any changes, especially if it's transitions from, well, it'll be hard to anticipate what a centralized system might look like in terms of specification. If council's processes are well designed, as it has been through this process, it places it in an advantageous position to be able to transition data and processes across to a centralized function. And that's probably the best you could ask to be in terms of preparation for such processes.
Councillor Clark.
Just picking up on Doug's comments about future-proofing the thing. I mean, if we have a centralised database, I'm sure the central government would love to use it as a vector when they do rearrange the local body landscape, knowing that they've captured everything into one little basket and they can divvy it up rather than interesting. It might be once Three Waters is water under the bridge, I dare say it will be the next step, and having a convenient database like that would be very convenient.
Right, any further comments? I do invite the councillors who are not members, former members of the committee, that this is so important for us, and if you have any questions, please do spark up and let us know. So are there any further comments or questions? No, right, thank you. Right, the recommendations are on page 55. Now, the recommendation is a bit wordy, but there is a reason for that in that we have to ensure that we have crossed the I's, dotted the T's, and made sure from a legal perspective that it is robust and fit for purpose. So I'm going to move that the recommendations on page 55 are received. Have a second. Councillor Crosby. All those in favour say aye. Carried.